You know you're in trouble when your wife starts locking her office door, and she's a bookkeeper. Not a therapist, not a lawyer, not a spy, just someone who crunches numbers for small business clients and gets excited about expense categories. Or at least that's what she used to do. Back when we shared everything, passwords, groceries, streaming accounts, and the occasional existential crisis over taxes. But lately, all that changed. It started with the headphones. Big ones. Noise canceling. A brand she claimed was on sale, but cost more than my car battery. She started wearing them all day while working in her makeshift home office, which was really just the guest room we once used to argue about IKEA assembly instructions. Then came the new password. Same laptop, same desk, different attitude. I just need a little more privacy, she said one morning while sipping the iced coffee I made. Some of my clients are super sensitive about data. Right, data. Like QuickBooks contains the nuclear codes now. Still, I played along. I've never been a snooper. Not because I'm noble, mostly because I'm lazy. And up until that point, I thought we were fine. Comfortable. Boring in that nice, suburban way where you know each other's favorite leftovers and watch reruns out of habit more than choice. But something shifted. She started dressing different. Not slutty different, just subtly curated. Like she was being watched through a screen. Hairstyled, even though she wasn't leaving the house. Lip gloss for Zoom calls. A new webcam, for better resolution. I asked if she had new clients. Just one, she said. Local guy? Construction business. Super disorganized. I'm basically rebuilding his books from scratch. She rolled her eyes when she said it. Like it was such a burden. Like she was doing charity work for the spreadsheet illiterate. I let it go. Then came the lunches. 2 to 3 times a week. I'd come home during my lunch break. I run HVAC, so I'm in and out a lot. Each time, the kitchen had 2 used plates, 2 forks, a couple of empty cans of sparkling water, but no sign of anyone else. When I asked, she'd shrug. Oh, I was just starving. Ate extra. Or, I ordered too much and saved the rest. Right. Because you eat on opposite sides of the plate now? The nail in the coffin came on a Thursday. I was looking at the monthly card statement, mostly to see if our grocery bill was still bleeding us out. That's when I noticed it. Lunchtime Bistro, $38.76. Lunchtime Bistro, $41.15. Lunchtime Bistro, $36.22. All in the span of 2 weeks. Now here's the kicker. I know that place. We used to eat there. Tiny Italian place with exactly one lunch special under $15. These weren't solo orders. These were 2 top meals. Sit down, shared breadbasket, flirty laugh kind of meals. I asked about it casually. She blinked. Oh, that's for a client lunch. We were going over receipts. I nodded. Construction guy? Yeah. He's clueless. Still writes checks. Checks, huh? A man lost in time. I dropped it. Or at least pretended to. But inside, the gears started turning. Because suddenly this clueless contractor was eating imported olives and duck prosciutto twice a week with my wife, behind a locked office door, while I crawled through attics and inhaled fiberglass. Something didn't add up. And if she wasn't going to show me the spreadsheet, I'd make one of my own. Suspicion is like an itch behind a wall. You can't scratch it directly, but eventually, you start punching through the drywall. After the 3rd fake client lunch and 1 too many locked doors, I decided it was time to stop playing dumb. I'm not tech savvy. I don't code. I don't track IPs or hack into phones. But I do know receipts. I know patterns. I know lunch for 2 when I see it. And I know how to build a story from transactions. So I started my own spreadsheet. Column A, date. Column B, restaurant charges. Column C, time of charge. Column D, which client she told me she was working with. Column E, her calendar entries from our synced family planner app, which she forgot I still had access to. In 2 weeks, I found 4 lunches billed around 12:45 p.m. each time. All on days she claimed she was working with different clients. 2 of them didn't even live in the state anymore. That's when I knew it wasn't just a lie. It was a system. She'd built herself a little romance schedule, covered her tracks with vague client projects, renamed calendar events like she was laundering time. One even said Dropbox syncing call during the exact window a $42 tab hit at the bistro. There was no Dropbox call. There was just duck ragu and deceit. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed more. Concrete proof. Something that couldn't be spun into a misunderstanding or wrapped in a tear-soaked apology about stress or feeling unappreciated. So I got creative. Step 1. I bought a burner phone. Cheap prepaid Android. Cash only. No trail. No contacts. I created a Gmail account with a fake name, ethanwfinancial@gmail.com. Sounded boring, trustworthy, slightly clueless. Step 2. I found her business website. Simple layout. Basic form. Submit your bookkeeping inquiry here. I filled it out using the name Ethan Williams. Small construction business. Local. Claimed I was behind on taxes and needed help sorting through a shoebox of receipts. Sloppy enough to be real. She responded in under 3 hours. Hi Ethan. Thanks for reaching out. I'd love to help you get everything in order. She even offered a 10% discount for first-time clients. Professional. Polite. So sweet you'd never guess she was eating linguine with another man behind a locked door 3 times a week. We emailed back and forth a few times. She asked basic intake questions. I faked ignorance. Claimed I couldn't scan anything. Said my printer was busted. Asked if she could do an in-person consult to go over receipts and talk strategy. She hesitated, then agreed. I normally don't do in-home consultations anymore, she wrote. But since you're local, we can make an exception. We picked a date, Friday afternoon. Conveniently, the day she usually worked late. Perfect. Step 3. I made 2 more calls. One to a printing shop, where I ordered a batch of fake receipts, cash transactions, scribbled entries, just enough mess to make my business look legit. And the second? To a man named Dale. I'd found him through her Instagram. She posted a photo of a client lunch a month earlier, artsy shot of a cappuccino beside a spiral notebook. No faces, but in the reflection on her spoon, I saw a blue flannel sleeve and a forearm tattoo. I cross-searched hashtags. Found him. Dale Thompson. General contractor. Subcontracted out for kitchen remodels. Lived 2 towns over. And, surprise, he was married. His wife had a joint Facebook account with him. You know the type, the couples who merge online identities because someone got caught once. Her name was Melissa. I messaged her. Just 1 line. You might want to join your husband on a consult this Friday at 3 p.m., 512 Pinehurst Drive. No signature. I didn't hear back. Didn't expect to. But I knew they'd come. Friday arrived like a courtroom summons. I cleaned the house. Staged the client materials, messy folders, a few random 1099s I printed off Reddit. Set the living room to look like a real intake session. And just before she was due, I placed a hidden phone on the bookshelf with the camera aimed at the couch. Then I waited. Right on time, 2:58 p.m., she pulled into the driveway. Wearing that same white blouse she always used for client days. Hair done. Smile ready. She walked in like it was just another job. Didn't recognize me, of course. Different house, different name. I wore a baseball cap and kept my back turned until she sat down and started unpacking her laptop. Thanks again for being flexible, she said, not even looking up. A lot of my clients cancel or reschedule last minute, so I really appreciate the follow-through. I nodded. No problem. This should only take a few minutes. Great. Do you have the receipts handy? I do, I said. And that's when the doorbell rang. She looked up, confused. Are you expecting someone? I shrugged. You could say that. She stood as I walked over and opened the door. There stood Dale. And beside him, Melissa. I watched the color drain from my wife's face like someone pulled her battery. Dale froze. Melissa didn't. Oh, we're not interrupting, are we? She said, sweetly venomous. Nope, I said. We were just getting to the part where she explains why lunch costs $40 for a single sandwich and a coffee. My wife opened her mouth, closed it, looked from me to Dale like she couldn't decide which direction to run. This some kind of joke? She whispered. Not even close, I said. I paid cash for the show. Melissa stepped forward. Calm. Cold. You've been double billing my husband's consultations, sweetheart? Silence. Then Dale stepped back and said, You know what? I think I'll wait in the truck. Melissa followed, but not before turning to me and saying, Thanks for the invite. Love your spreadsheets. And just like that, the illusion shattered. My wife stood in my living room, laptop open, receipts scattered, and no script left to read from. But the best part? She didn't know what else I had planned. Yet, you can always tell the difference between someone who's sorry and someone who's just been caught. That day, my wife didn't apologize. She stood in the living room like the Wi-Fi had gone out mid-Zoom call, frozen, buffering, half processing what had just happened. Melissa's words still lingered in the air like incense. "You've been double billing my husband's consultations, sweetheart?" She didn't deny it. She didn't ask how I figured it out. She didn't even say my name. She just sat down slowly on the couch, closed her laptop, and stared at the fake receipts on the coffee table like they might spontaneously burst into flames and savor the effort of explaining. I didn't speak. Let her stew. Let her imagine all the ways this was going to get worse. And it did. First, Dale and Melissa filed a formal complaint with the Small Business Registry. Melissa might have looked like the sweet, wronged wife type, but under that cardigan was a woman who'd been waiting years to go full nuclear. I found out later she had screenshots of texts, Venmo receipts, even a screen recording of a FaceTime call where my wife said the words, "Your wife doesn't understand you." Classic. Meanwhile, my wife tried damage control. She texted me that night. Not "I'm sorry." Not "let's talk." No, just, "I didn't think it would go this far." As if cheating with a married man and turning your bookkeeping business into a boutique brothel was supposed to stay lighthearted. I didn't answer. She came home late. Didn't knock. Just quietly used her key, walked in like a ghost, and went straight to the bedroom. I stayed on the couch. Didn't even bother looking up from my beer. She didn't say a word, but I knew she was panicking. Her laptop didn't leave her lap for 48 hours. She stayed hunched over spreadsheets like a wartime codebreaker, frantically combing through invoices and transaction histories, probably trying to figure out how much I'd seen. Answer? All of it. See, this wasn't just about Dale, or lunches, or client chemistry. This was about something deeper, the arrogance of someone who believed they were untouchable because they worked from home and knew how to format cells in Excel. The next day, I paid a visit to my buddy Marcus. He runs a small business too, IT services, sells refurbished hardware, sets up security systems, deals with nightmare clients who think turning the router off and on is dark magic. But more importantly, he knows a guy. Within hours, I had everything I needed. Backups of her secured spreadsheets, a full copy of her recent invoice history, and a trail of edited documents going back 6 months. Turns out she didn't just double bill Dale. She had a pattern. Multiple clients accidentally charged for the same hours. Odd math in the tax prep fees. Rounding errors that always rounded up. And invoices with identical time stamps. Like she was billing 2 people for the same exact lunch consult. Sloppy. I compiled a folder. Labeled it for review. Inside, I included the flagged invoices, audio from the fake client session, screenshots of the restaurant transactions, and, just for flair, a photo of the empty sparkling water cans from our trash bin, side by side. Then I sent it to 3 places. The licensing office that handled her small business registration. Her biggest client, a local dentist's office with a very public-facing reputation. And her own email. Subject line: "Your books are cooked. Clean up or get cooked yourself." She read the email 3 times, judging by the read receipts. Didn't reply. Instead, she showed up at the kitchen table the next morning, hair down, sweatpants on, trying to look casual while the Titanic sank behind her eyes. "You're really going to ruin me over one mistake?" she asked. I raised an eyebrow. "You think this was one mistake?" Her lip curled. "Okay, fine. Over one affair. One stupid thing. Multiple fraudulent charges, unethical billing, tax misrepresentation, sure. One stupid thing." She crossed her arms. "You want me gone? I'll leave. Not before you talk to them." She froze. "Who?" I slid my phone across the table. On the screen was a Zoom link. "Your clients. The ones you didn't steal from. Yet. I invited them to a transparency session. Thought you could walk them through your files. Explain the discrepancies." "You're sick," she said. "No. I'm clean," I said. "And you're about to find out what accountability feels like." She stormed out. Didn't take her laptop. Didn't come back that night. Instead, I got an email from her lawyer 2 days later, proposing a separation agreement. She offered to walk away from the house, the shared account, even the car, as long as I didn't pursue formal charges or continued client contact. She called it a fair deal. I called it a confession. I agreed, but only after having Marcus archive every file and timestamp for safekeeping. She wouldn't go to jail, but she'd never own another tax ID under her name without getting a migraine from it. She moved into a friend's guest room, probably to strategize her next reinvention. Maybe become a financial life coach or women's empowerment consultant. God help them all. I didn't miss her. What I did do, started helping Dale's wife set up her own bookkeeping business. Melissa had an accounting degree she'd shelved for marriage. I figured if anyone deserved a clean restart, it was the woman who smiled while burning her marriage down with spreadsheets and screenshots. As for me, I kept the house, and the laptop, and the silence, which, for once, wasn't a red flag. It was freedom. There's something weirdly satisfying about watching a liar try to reinvent themselves with nothing but glitter and denial. After my wife, technically now my ex, but let's not get ahead of ourselves, packed up her office and fled to her best friend's guest room, I expected radio silence. I figured she'd disappear, lick her wounds, maybe rebrand as a yoga accountant, and post vague Instagram stories about rising from the ashes. But no, she pivoted. Hard. Within 10 days of walking out, she launched a brand new website. Different colors, different logo, same service. Bookkeeping for small businesses, except now with a fresh tagline. Authenticity, clarity, trust. I actually laughed when I read it. The woman who couldn't keep her fake client name straight was now marketing herself as a transparency guru. She added a blog, wrote posts like how to protect your client's financial integrity and lessons I've learned from failure. Didn't mention what kind of failure. Just vague, self-helpy language. Enough to make insecure entrepreneurs feel like hiring her was an act of redemption, not stupidity. She even added a testimonial. Anonymous, of course. She helped me make sense of years of chaos. Yeah, that's one way to describe adultery and double billing. But the thing that really got me? She started a podcast, called it Balancing More Than Books. Weekly episodes, short monologues. Her voice, calm, breathy, over-rehearsed, preaching about boundaries, forgiveness, self-accountability, and how sometimes we get lost in the formulas of other people's expectations. I listened to 3 episodes, not because I missed her voice, but because I couldn't believe the audacity. She didn't say my name, never mentioned Dale, but she told the story like she was the protagonist, like some faceless, toxic relationship had held her back, like she had been manipulated into betraying her business ethics. And her audience? Loved it. The usual suspects. Inspirational quote addicts. Passive-aggressive hustle moms. Lonely freelancers looking for a voice that sounded like a warm blanket, soaked in marketing jargon. The comments were glowing. You're so brave. Thank you for speaking your truth. This is the kind of content we need more of. They had no idea. And honestly, I would have let it go. Let her build her little cult of branded forgiveness. Let her feed off validation while ignoring the fact that a spreadsheet full of falsified charges was still floating in cloud storage. But then she did something stupid. She tried to steal my story. Not legally, that would have taken guts. But subtly. In episode 4, titled The Cost of Exposure, she told a tale about a past client who set her up, pretending to be someone else and humiliating her in front of others. Said it was an orchestrated effort to break her spirit, and that she almost left the profession entirely because of it. I nearly spit out my coffee. She didn't just spin the truth. She spun herself into a victim of a con she ran. I knew what this was. Damage control. Rebranding. Classic narcissist maneuver. Take the most damning part of your history, wrap it in fuzzy language, and sell it as trauma you overcame. I thought about ignoring it, but ignoring wasn't what got me this far. So I made a call. Well, 2. First was to Marcus again, my tech-savvy friend. Asked if he could help me verify where her new website was hosted, and whether it was pulling testimonials from real clients or just auto-generated text. 15 minutes later, he sent me a report. Her testimonials were fake, auto-generated from a review plugin that created rotating praise blurbs based on keywords. She didn't even try to write them herself. One was literally a variation of, "She saved my life and my spreadsheets." Gag. The second call, to a podcast host I knew from a local business meetup. Guy named Pete. Middle-aged, gruff voice, straight shooter. Runs a series on ethical entrepreneurship and how to spot scams. He owed me a favor. I sent him the receipts. Literally. Audio clips from the fake client session. Screenshots from her double billing. The draft invoice where she billed Dale twice under 2 different business names. Once as consulting, once as admin entry. The kind of paper trail even an intern could follow. Pete was hooked. We recorded the episode that same week. He let me speak anonymously, disguised my voice, blurred the details, but told the full story. How I posed as a client. How I baited her. How I invited her real affair partner and his wife to the meeting. How she tried to salvage it with lies and then quietly fled. The episode was titled, When the Books Don't Balance. Catching a fraud in her own numbers. It dropped on a Monday. By Wednesday, it had 40,000 plays. Comments started appearing under her podcast. DMs flooded her public account. Someone even posted a side-by-side clip of her toxic setup story next to a transcription of mine, showing just how cleanly her story was lifted from my real experience, minus the accountability. She posted a story the next day. Black screen. White text. It's easy to attack people trying to heal. It's harder to do your own work. Right. That's why your old clients are now emailing me asking if they should hire someone new. One guy even sent me a gift card. Said, "Thanks for saving me from hiring a fraud." I bought steaks. Grilled them that night with a beer in hand. Alexa playing 90s rock while I sat outside on the patio. No locked doors. No mystery lunches. No invoices that didn't line up. Just air. And peace. And a smell that said, "You made it out clean." But it wasn't over yet. Because while she was busy spiraling under a ring light, I was preparing the final nail. Not for her reputation. For her license. The difference between justice and revenge is paperwork. She thought I was done, figured the podcast exposure was the climax, the twist, the curtain call. The story she could control, spin, and eventually reframe with a new healing season on her podcast. She even posted a teaser for it. Coming soon. Rebuilding from the rubble, my rawest chapter yet. Barf. What she didn't know was that while she was busy rebranding with pastel fonts and trauma quotes, I'd been quietly preparing something far less poetic. A formal complaint to the Board of Accountancy. Now technically, my ex wasn't a CPA. She wasn't licensed through a state board or certified by a national agency. But she was registered as a tax preparer and held a small business license under the remote bookkeeping and financial consulting category in our state, which means she was subject to the Office of Professional Regulation. Most people don't know that. Most people, especially people who work from home in yoga pants and live off Venmo transfers, don't bother reading the back end of their own licensing laws. I did. Turns out, even if you're not a licensed accountant, if you operate as a paid bookkeeper or tax professional and advertise financial services, you fall under the state's regulatory oversight, especially if you misrepresent business services, fabricate or manipulate invoices, double bill clients, provide false documentation, use unauthorized client information for personal gain. And wouldn't you know it, she ticked off all 5. So I submitted everything. Not anonymously. I used my real name. Attached the full invoice timeline, flagged transactions, overlapping entries, and a timeline of her client lunches backed by transaction history and calendar metadata. I even included the disguised Zoom recording where she refers to me as Ethan and documents that our sessions are not billable because they're pro bono. She then billed 2 hours for that same session under strategic financial consulting. Strategic, all right. The board doesn't move fast, but they move thoroughly. I got a confirmation email 3 days later, then a phone call, then a follow-up interview where I laid it all out without drama. No raised voice, no moral speech, just dates, files, names, evidence. They said they'd open an investigation. Meanwhile, her house of cards continued to tremble. I heard from Melissa again, Dale's wife. She sent me a DM that said, simply, she just emailed my husband asking if they could meet for closure. I forwarded it to her clients. Hope that's okay. I replied, perfect. A week later, I checked her site. Offline. The domain was still live, but the pages were gone. Blog. Blank. Podcast episodes. Scrubbed. Social media. On temporary break for mental clarity. The cracks weren't just showing. They were swallowing her whole. But even then, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't dance. I didn't gloat. I just felt clean. The kind of clean you feel when you finally take out the trash that's been stinking up the fridge for months. Still, I knew she'd try something. She always did. It came in the form of a lawyer letter, not a full suit, just a cease and desist. She claimed I had interfered with her business relationships and engaged in intentional defamation through third-party content. Nice try. What she didn't realize was that I'd kept the paper trail clean. I never posted anything under my own name. Never mentioned her business directly in the podcast. Never shared her materials publicly. Only submitted them to the regulatory board, her clients, and podcast hosts with signed release forms. So I responded through my own lawyer with a simple statement. All submitted information was factually accurate, legally obtained, and delivered through proper professional channels for review and accountability. Your client is free to dispute any findings with evidence. We never heard back, probably because her lawyer realized halfway through reading the files that they'd walked into a minefield. Meanwhile, I started getting messages from former clients of hers. A few asked if I could recommend someone new. A couple wanted to compare invoices. One just said, "Wish I'd known sooner. She was charging me for lunch breaks." By then, her name was radioactive. Her business listing was flagged as under investigation. Her Yelp profile, previously spotless, had mysteriously disappeared. Wonder why? She tried to pivot again. New profile, new domain, new name. But people talk. And thanks to the magic of cached data and the internet's collective memory, it didn't take long for someone to connect the dots. One Reddit thread, one TikTok expose. Poof. Second brand, dead on arrival. And still, she tried the last trick in the cheater's playbook. The "I've grown" letter. It arrived in my mailbox one Tuesday, printed on cream paper, folded neatly, handwritten. "I don't expect forgiveness," it began. "But I hope one day you'll understand that I was trying to survive." Survive what exactly? A marriage where she didn't pay rent? Where I did the taxes? Where her biggest hardship was a slow internet connection during a Zoom call? She signed it. With sincerity and regret, M. I fed the letter to my shredder. Didn't even finish it. Because people like her don't regret what they do. They regret being outsmarted by someone they thought would stay quiet. So no, I didn't feel guilty. I felt done. And almost satisfied. Almost. One thing left. The funny thing about cheaters is they always assume the story ends when they're done talking. She sent that handwritten letter like it was a movie ending. A quiet piano chord. A final scene in which she looks regretfully out the window while I, off-screen, learn to forgive. But this wasn't her movie. It was a case file. And I wasn't her co-star. I was the guy writing the footnotes. So while she was wrapping things up in cursive, I was already finishing the one move that would follow her longer than any podcast episode ever could. The complaint I filed with the state board had triggered something she clearly didn't anticipate, a routine audit. See, when you file enough documentation, real invoices, actual screenshots, unedited voice recordings, the Board of Accountancy forwards your case to their compliance division. And they don't just look at what you did. They look at what you claimed, which, in her case, meant reviewing the last 2 years of filed taxes and small business deductions, particularly under professional services, contractor meals, and client development. And guess what? She'd written off nearly everything. The client lunches with Dale? Deducted. The wine she kept hidden in a box labeled Zoom Energy? Deducted. Even the cost of her ring light, yoga mats, and ergonomic chair she used for fake virtual consults? Deducted. Over $8,000 in write-offs for services she never rendered, meetings that were actually dates, and business tools that propped up a personal affair. All submitted under penalty of perjury. Now I didn't bring that part to the board's attention directly, but someone else did. A former client. One of the people I'd quietly sent the spreadsheet file to. A restaurant owner who she'd overbilled twice and then ghosted when he asked for a refund. Apparently, he'd reported her to the IRS hotline as part of a whistleblower incentive program. You know, the one that pays a percentage of any recovered taxes. Cold. Brilliant. Poetic. I found out about it through a friend of a friend, someone who works adjacent to the department, not in it. Not officially, but close enough to confirm that an inquiry had been opened into irregular Schedule C activity and potential misuse of deductions related to unreported personal relationships. There was no SWAT team, no handcuffs, no headlines, just paperwork, letters, deadlines, penalties, and silence. Her website stayed down. Her social pages stayed private. Her email autoresponder, last I checked, simply said, "Currently restructuring my business. Thank you for your patience." Restructuring is a nice word for trying not to drown. She hasn't reached out since the letter. I think, deep down, she finally figured out the rules had changed. That the guy who used to cook dinner and fix the router wasn't coming back. That there was no longer a version of me who'd sit through apologies disguised as emotional TED Talks. And me? I didn't move on. I moved up, kept the house, sold her ergonomic chair, turned her old office into a hobby room. Not for anything productive. I just sit in there sometimes with a drink, thinking about how quiet it is when someone's not lying on the other side of the door. I even started dating again. Slowly, carefully, no rush. The girl I've been seeing knows the story, the short version, anyway. She asked me once, "Do you ever worry it'll happen again?" I told her the truth. No, I worry I'll ignore the signs again. Because the signs were there. They always are. The new password, the sudden privacy, the double lunches, the extra sparkle on a Thursday afternoon. It's not just cheating, it's a shift in energy. A version of the person you love that no longer needs you in the room to perform. But now I watch. Not obsessively, just accurately. And if it ever happens again, I won't argue. I'll open a folder, build a file, let the receipts do the talking. Because stories can be deleted. But spreadsheets? They remember everything. Subscribe to the channel